Welcome to the In Factor conversations with entrepreneurs who started, stumbled, and succeeded. I'm Rebecca White, and my guest today is Scott Reib. Scott is known as America's legal coach. He founded Reib Law, and he's been practicing law for some time, but decided a few years back to figure out a way to help entrepreneurs and small business owners navigate the confusing legal system and reduce their risk, which is something entrepreneurs are always trying to do. So I'm really excited today to have Scott joining us and looking forward to learning all about your background as an attorney and as an entrepreneur. Scott, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, so I'm very excited to learn more. As I mentioned, entrepreneurs are always looking to minimize risk, and that's a big part of your job as an attorney for entrepreneurs. So, tell us a little bit about what you do for entrepreneurs. I know you're known as America's legal coach, and you also developed a couple of businesses, Next Level Legal Coaching. And so, tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll back up and find out how you got into this space.
Yeah, so we help entrepreneurs grow, scale, and protect their businesses, and we do some of that through our law firm, Reib Law, some of it through Next Level Legal and Shatterproof Solutions. But the goal is for business owners to have businesses that will last and build legacies, not just businesses. And so to do that, you mentioned we have to cover risk. We have to build smart businesses that are built on systems and not people. And that have the right legal structures in place and that have the right leadership strategies in place. And so we do all that with the different companies we do, with the book and with the podcast. And it's just a whole lot of fun to work with entrepreneurs as they build their dreams.
Yeah. Well, I know my husband actually is an attorney, and I know he's done a number of different types of work in the legal field. But he found as well that working with entrepreneurs and early stage companies and helping business founders was a lot more fun than some of the other things that he experienced as an attorney.
That is for sure. Yeah, I've been doing this 27 years and started out litigating and litigated lots of different kinds of things and really kind of found until I got to the smaller business stuff, I didn't feel like I was helping anyone, and I was just cranking out hours that someone was willing to pay, and it wasn't satisfying. And so as I started working with small business owners, that became more fun. I could see where I was really making a difference. And then in 2012, we decided to flip the system on its head and provide a better way for small business owners to access legal information and services. And that was a game changer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I definitely want to get into that, but before we do, I'd like to dig in a little bit more to your background because you're an entrepreneur as well as an attorney, and that is actually I don't know how common that is, but I do know that a lot of attorneys have their own legal practice. And many probably struggle with the business side and the strategy side of being in the legal business, so to speak. So tell us a little bit about your background. I think you went to Oklahoma for law school. Is that right?
I
So,
yeah yeah
yeah, what
I did.
what brought you to this profession? And did you think that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or was it all about being an attorney all your life?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I was interested in being an attorney early on. I can remember in junior high having career day and the local lawyer coming in, and it was a big deal. And I thought, well, that would be nice. And so I talked about that some. And then as I got into college and worked on my business degree, I really fell in love with marketing and wanted to be an ad exec. And that was my goal. So I got my degree, got out in 91, and there were really not any jobs. The economy was pretty bad. And you look for marketing jobs, and they were sales jobs. They wanted you to sell copiers, phones, insurance, everything except for actually do marketing. So I was newly married and had to take what I could get. And so I tried to sell insurance, and that wasn't my thing. Ended up selling phones, systems, and aftermarket systems for a major telecom carrier in Tulsa, and had a really nice gig, I was my own boss. I had a contract, I was a contract agent, and was doing really well, and had figured out a way to make some mailbox money in their systems. And they came along and said, "Hey, we love what you're doing, but we're going to take that and give it to a minimum wage person." And suddenly that was gone. And so I went to a friend of my parents who was a lawyer, and he was graciously talked to me and explained to me how I was probably right, but I couldn't afford to litigate. And I decided I didn't want to be in that position anymore. So I like to say I did what any normal person would do. I went to law school. And I realized that's not quite normal, but I had a brother-in-law that was just finishing law school. And I'm like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And he told me how he paid for it. And I was fortunate enough that my parents paid for my undergrad, so I hadn't experienced the student loans and all that stuff. And so my wife and I figured it out. And so off to Norman, Oklahoma, we went in the fall of '93, and I started law school, and really had probably the best 3 years of our lives. Really, law school was pretty great. Anyone that's if you've worked and gone back to school, you understand how great school is as compared to work. And so we went and did that, and I became a lawyer, and then had to kind of work my way through being a lawyer to, like we talked earlier about finding what really fit and what lit me up. And for the last decade, I've been able to focus on that.
Yeah, that so such a great story. And interestingly, I had some of those same experiences. The first jobs I remember that I had were a lot of them in sales, and it's great experience to get those jobs. And I encourage students that I work with to go ahead and take sales jobs, but maybe not where you want to stay forever. Some people do, but it's not. It wasn't what I wanted either. And I sort of did the same thing. I had a problem, not a problem, but a challenge at work. Let me put it that way. Visited with an attorney, and I ended up going back to graduate school for my master's and then PhD. So, sometimes life hands us those things for a reason, right?
Definitely. And sometimes in a bad economy, the best thing to do is go retool, uh, make yourself better, more valuable to the marketplace, and then wait for that opportunity to come up. And it worked out for both of us. And I've got two boys now. One's just finishing up a master's in accounting, and has found that's opened up a lot of doors for him. I'm a big proponent of education if you have a goal and a way to use it to make money, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And like you, I always thought, well, if I don't know what to do, education's a good placeholder, at least for the while. It'll get me somewhere better. So,
That's right.
at the end, you came out with a law degree and began to practice law, which is great. And, have had a fantastic career, it sounds like. So let's talk a little bit about that whole piece of opportunity recognition, because I'm always digging in with entrepreneurs to try to find out how they connected the dots to find that opportunity. And of
Mhm.
course, you mentioned that this was the thing that excited you. I think you used the term lit you up. And so, what were some of the signs? Like, what were you hearing from clients? And were there any pivotal moments in terms of what you were doing that you can look back at and say, yeah, that's when I knew that really having this focus was going to be some place I could make a difference.
Yeah, in 2011, 2012, I started having a kind of a weird problem. It it was good for me. I was having repeat business, and the problem was I shouldn't have been. They were making mistakes that were easily avoided, and I kind of felt bad about it because they'd come in with their proverbial house on fire. We'd fix it, for $100,000 later, and they would not be super happy about how much it cost, or excited about the outcome because they didn't ever want to be there in the first place. And it all could have been avoided usually with a phone call or a document review. Uh, and they, rather than spend the money, they would just flip a coin. They do anything but call me. And so I kind of thought back to the start of my law firm in '05. I was a solo with one assistant, and we're in this executive suite with other entrepreneurs, and we'd sit around and drink coffee, and they'd ask me questions, and they would joke about that this is the only way they could get legal advice because they couldn't afford me, and it was true. I couldn't afford me. So I kind of look as I looked back at that, and I thought, there's a real problem. They don't think they can afford me, and they need me. And then the way we're charging clients is a disincentive for them to come back for more help because we're charging by the hour. So they see money flying out of their pocket every time they think of my name. So they avoided me. I really had to do kind of a deep dive. Was it my personality? Was I doing something wrong to make them not want to spend time with me? And fortunately, it wasn't me. It was the system. And so I hired a business coach with a vision of building an on-demand system so the small business owners could avoid those mistakes, treat law like primary care rather than emergency room. And it's uh, it's really changed the way I live my life and the way we practice here and interact with our clients. I consider myself, I'm a lawyer, but I'm much more of a coach than a lawyer because I don't want you to just have the answer. I want you to understand how we get to the answer, how to ask better questions so that you can make better decisions as you're building your business.
Oh, that really makes a lot of sense, and I like your analogy to the healthcare profession, right? That you want to keep your patients or your clients, in your case, out of the emergency room. And I can see how that happens because, as some, being familiar with how the legal system works with my husband, every 15 minutes you have to charge somebody, right? So, it's not much fun to work that way either for the attorney because it really kind of forces you into a box a lot of times, right?
Yeah, it's a box, and you if you go on vacation, you fall behind on your billable hours, and so then you're thinking about that the whole time you're on vacation. You're always in the back of your mind thinking about, did I spend more time than I should have on this project? And so you're just there's this internal conflict, and then you have to actually bill. Kind of a funny story is that the first 90 days of my practice, I was very fortunate that we opened the doors and we had business because a bunch of people followed me from my old firm, and so we were busy. And 3 months in, someone mentioned to me that, hey, the cash reserves are getting a little low. You might want to bill some clients. I hadn't billed my clients in 3 months. I didn't even have any billing software. So we'd kept track of our time, but we hadn't billed anybody. So then I had to work about 24 hours straight to create the bills, to get the bills out. And then I found for the next 8 to 10 years that we were spending a couple of days every month just billing the clients in order to collect the money. Well, to get the bills out and then hope that you could collect the money because sometimes you would, sometimes you wouldn't. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it was no fun. And so
Yeah,
now I
and
don't
that
do that.
it's yeah, I'm sorry. It's really
Yeah.
interesting that this approach because what I think I heard you say in the very beginning when we started talking about it is that people would avoid that 15-minute or 30-minute fee, but in the end, they'd pay a lot more, and it was creating extra work for you. So you were able to pull all of this together, and you basically, as I understand, you eliminated hourly fees, which is highly
Right.
unusual, except in certain areas of law practice. And so, how does it work? How do you charge clients, and how do you work differently with your clients?
Yeah, so we have a subscription called the Access Plan. It's a legal consulting subscription, and so you get a certain set services per your level. We have 4 different levels that go with the different stages of business, and we kind of figure out where you are together, and then once you say that's a good fit, then you sign up, and there's a sign up fee and then a monthly fee, so you know exactly what you're paying every month, and it starts at $425 a month, so that you know, hey, I've got the legal coverage I need, so I have peace of mind that I'm making good decisions. Your contracts that you're using with your customers are solid. You have someone to ask questions to on demand, and we've built your legal structure up front so that you know that you have a solid foundation for your business. And then we just start walking with you as you grow your business. And we do monthly calls. So we have a coaching call where it's, hey, what have you been up to? What's coming up? And my job and our team's job on those calls is to find things that we would need to do to support you that are included in your plan. We're not looking for extra work. We're looking for work that you need done now that's included. There are other lawyers doing similar things, but most of them are building them on what I call the gym model, where we want you to sign up and then hope you never use it because we can't really fit enough people in the gym if everyone showed up. We want you to use it. We have meetings talking about people that haven't been using the plan. How do we get them re-engaged? Let's talk to them. Let's keep them going because we don't do them any good if they're not talking to us. We're a resource and a trusted advisor if they'll bring us in, and most people do. But some people are comfortable with just paying us the monthly fee, knowing we're here if they need us, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Now, attorneys have worked for a long time, many attorneys on retainers. Is this similar to that, or what's the fundamental difference in what you do?
It's similar. The retainer usually doesn't cover any real work. It just says that we'll take your calls when you need us, and that you've locked us in, and so we're your lawyers. We can't take other cases that would be in conflict with you. We're stuck together. With the subscription model, there's certain things built into the plan that you don't have to you aren't that you haven't don't have to pay again for. Some people will charge for a block of hours. We don't do that. It's just all about what's in something outside your level. We give you a flat fee quote for how much that will cost. If you're an Access member, it's obviously a discount off of what someone else would pay, and then we perform the work. If our estimate's incorrect and it takes us more work to do it than it should have, that's on us. Every other business owner has to figure out what it costs to deliver their services, and lawyers have been exempt for that for years, and we're not. And I definitely sometimes lose money because I underbid a project, and that's okay. I learn from it, and we do it different next time.
So I pay a subscription fee, and so what that implies is that there are different levels and each different types of subscription. Is that
That's
correct?
right.
And then
Yep,
there would be different items included in that.
that's correct. Yeah, you go from launch all the way up to Guardian. At Guardian, we're talking about estate planning. We're talking about legacy building, buy-sell agreements. How do we make sure this thing passes on to someone else? And if something happens to one of us, what happens to the partners? And we talk about all that stuff. And so it starts getting complicated. At the front end, at launch, it's just like let's get you going. Let's get you over your first $250,000 in revenue, and then we can start adding the bells and whistles that you need as you're starting to scale.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the important things to remember, and that I talk to entrepreneurs about, is that they need to make sure that their attorney doesn't have to educate himself or herself on your dime. So you want to go with somebody who understands how to do what you need. Does your law firm do the full array of, everything from legal entity formation to, tax specifics, working with my accountant, let's say, to estate planning you mentioned? Do you also do things like intellectual property and contracts? And so do you have the full gamut there at your firm?
Yeah, we don't do any tax planning. I only play a tax lawyer on TV and can't do that stuff. But we do work. But we require our clients to have a tax professional, either a CPA or accountant that they trust, and then we work closely with them and have discussions with them. When we're creating business structures, to make sure that what we're creating still works tax efficiently, because that's the most important thing. Really, I can protect you all kinds of ways, but the way you measure success in business, unfortunately, is money. So we need to make sure we're keeping as much as possible. And so we work with those professionals. We do contracts, we do intellectual property, we do estate planning for our business owners, because we want to make sure that there's not a problem when something either happens to them. Because right, there's two things: you're either going to become incapacitated and then die, or you're just going to die. I hate to break it to everybody, but those are the two options. And so as a business owner, you've got to have a plan in place where someone else can step in and make decisions for you, sign checks for you if you're temporarily disabled. If you don't have that set up right, they can't get to court fast enough to make payroll. You don't make payroll once, maybe you survive. You don't make payroll twice, and your business is gone.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
that's
we do
really
those
wise
things.
advice. And I think it's always important for an entrepreneur to ensure that their attorney and their accountant are talking. Right, that's an incredible value there.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk to all of our clients about, and I write about in my book, is that you have to assemble a team of key advisors, one of which is the CPA accountant. You need a lawyer for sure. You need a business coach. You need a banker, not a bank. You need a relationship with an actual banker that can, will take your calls, will call you on your cell phone, someone that actually cares about you and your business. And then you need an insurance broker that will sit down with you and actually, talk about what you do, understand your risks, and then give you the whole array of coverages that you could use, and then let you pick and choose what feels right or what's in your budget. If you have that team around you and they all can talk, then you can go out and make money, let them talk in the background, bring you questions or decisions to make instead of you having to wrangle all of them. And if you do it that way, then you have this super team of advisors that can really help you go places fast.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the models. You mentioned your book, and you talk about things like shatterproofing your business. What does that mean?
Yeah, shutterproofing comes from the concept of the glass in our cars, right? We have these windshields that are shatterproof. It was invented around World War I and was first used successfully in gas masks to create a barrier between the soldiers and that mustard seed gas, and wasn't really adopted until much later in cars. But the idea is, or at least I believe, that our businesses are the best vehicle to achieve our life goals and dreams. And every vehicle I've ever been in has a windshield, and it's got two purposes. One's vision, the other's protection. And so that shatterproof glass is giving you that protection. So we want to build shatterproof businesses so that when those rocks on the road hit your windshield, like hit mine every day I get on I-35, they mark it. I can pull over later and fix it. But if I haven't got the right glass, if I don't have a shatterproof business, then it comes right through that glass, hits me in the face. I go off the road, game over. If you follow the shatterproof process and go through the 6 phases, the chances of that happening are very minimal, and you're able to survive, because the idea is to build a business that's going to bend and not break, and most businesses just aren't set up that way. And so that's the process. It all started for me when I read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth Revisited, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I haven't built my law firm that way. And then I started learning how to build it on systems. I hired business coaches, and then I had to figure out, now, how does the legal stuff mix into that? And with that mix, you end up with the Shatterproof process.
Yeah, the E Myth and the E Myth Revisited, great books by Michael Gerber. I highly recommend them for every small business and owner, every founder. I think they're fantastic books. I love your analogy. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. It sounds like to me that you're also doing coaching, and I know you do something called next level legal coaching. So how does typical attorney that I, as a small business owner, might work with? What are some of the things that make next level legal coaching different?
Yeah, there's a couple of things we do there. First, with Next Level Legal Coaching, is that I help other lawyers that want to build their own subscription plans. They want some freedom in life, and they want to get out of that rat race of billing by the hour. We can help them and show them how to do that. The next thing we do is through Shatterproof Solutions, and that's where we walk business owners through the Shatterproof process of not just the legal side. With me, you always are going to get that, but it's how do you do the right leadership things? How do you set your company's vision? Write your mission statement, create your core values, and then how do you use those things in business, right? Because everything rises and falls on leadership. And then how are we going to create a marketing system? How are we going to create a sales system? I always encourage my clients to create a recurring revenue model because I'm in love with it. It changed my life, and they should have that component. And so in Shatterproof Solutions, we're doing live events where we teach people these concepts, and then we invite them into a deeper relationship with us through a mastermind group so that if they want to really grow and scale fast.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, what you've done, it sounds like, is incorporate technology into what you're doing, because it sounds like you've got an opportunity, or maybe I'm assuming maybe you haven't, but can you work with clients remotely at all through the coaching?
Yeah, it's rare I see anybody in person anymore. I had a call last week with a client that's about an hour down the road, and she's actually going to come in next week, and I was very happy. It's like she's going to come in and use my conference room, and we're going to have a face-to-face meeting. There's clients I've never met face-to-face because it's just so easy to use things like Zoom, Teams, and we've been using that technology since 2018 because it just made it where I could go from meeting to meeting so much more efficiently, have a recording of what happened so that my team can create action steps so that we don't forget to do things. It really changed a lot of stuff for me by leveraging that technology. One of our biggest problems right now is our technology stack's too big. And so we're working to try to shrink it and find things that do multiple parts so that we have less, because onboarding people is not fun when your technology stack's really big.
Yeah. So, by that, do you mean you've got a lot of different individual platforms you're using, and you want to
Yeah,
combine? Yeah. It's
yeah. A lot of
I
them work
think that's
together, but it's still you have to learn all these different things.
yeah, I think it's a problem that a lot of businesses are challenged with as they start to incorporate technology more. It becomes very easy to have yourself, subscribe to a lot of different technology platforms, and then before you know it, it's not only expensive, but it's also gets a little bit too complex. So let me back up and ask you about COVID. Were you meeting remotely prior to COVID, or did COVID help sort of propel you forward into doing more remote meeting with clients?
We were already remote. Um, we were doing most of our client conversations were happening remotely. We were starting to do sales calls remotely. Some people still wanted to come in, but we were already doing it. So when we had to go home, it was just a matter of taking our laptop home and doing what we were doing already. We were ready for it, and so it was really not that big of a deal, other than just having to not be together. It was so we were ready for it, which was very nice.
Yeah, yeah. I had not thought too much about that, but being ahead of the curve on that probably gave you a real advantage when that happened, because I know a lot of other, a lot of other legal practices and other kinds of services and businesses really struggled with that transition. So it sounds like you didn't have you didn't miss too much there when that happened. Obviously, we all went through a lot of change,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it sounds like you were ready, more prepared than many.
Yeah, in 2018, we started making switching from desktops to laptops, and everything went to things that either were completely on the cloud or had cloud backups, so that and selfishly, it was really selfishly for me, so that I could work anywhere in the world and have access to everything I needed, and so that I knew that if we had an ice storm or some kind of a weather event, that my team could keep working from wherever they were. And so we built it that way before the pandemic, and it's just we've ramped up since then and use a lot more technology than we did then. But we were ready. It made everything very easy because we could still have team meetings and do all the things that we were doing before. And so yeah, we were very blessed to have had the foresight to do that for different reasons than you would think, but we did it.
Right, right. So you've got this kind of two lines of business. You coach other legal practices that want to do something similar to what you're doing, and then you also coach and work with business founders, and entrepreneurs. So I have to ask you about building your company. You said you have about 40 people on your team. Did I hear that correctly? Or
No, I don't. That'd be amazing. No, I have
oh,
people.
okay. I'm sorry. I'm.
No,
How many
we
people? So tell us about your team, and are you all located in the same place, or are you remote?
We're a mix. So there's two of us that are in the office full time. I have a full time paralegal that's been with you almost a decade, and then we have remote teammates. We have five what I would call full time or regular employees, and then we have vendors that we use on contract basis, and we use a lot of contract lawyers to work on projects. My role here is more on the client relationship and strategy side, and we try to keep me out of the legal documents because my time's better spent doing other things. Occasionally, I still jump into projects because they're something I want to do, but we've tried to keep the team as small as possible. And that's one of the lessons that we did learn in COVID is that we could do a lot more than we thought we could with a smaller team. I had a full time associate just before all that hit, and had not replaced him just kind of because I don't like interviewing people, and so we had waited a little bit, and then when that hit, it was like, oh, you know what, we don't really need that position anymore. So we haven't done that. I've been able to cover everything we want to with people there's enough lawyers out there that need more work, that are really good lawyers, but they just aren't quite full. And we make it really easy for them to fill, a few extra hours a week. They do quality work for us. And I mean, they talk to our clients, they do everything they just aren't employees.
Yeah. Does that so how any thoughts or advice on this whole remote workforce? Anything that you've learned about that?
It's really challenging from a leadership standpoint to build culture. I think it's very difficult to do remotely. If I wish I could have everyone in the same place, it just doesn't work for us right now. I could see it happening again in the future where maybe we have a bigger home base and everyone's here more often. But you just have to have really uh, intentional time to spend with the team and talk about the same things you would have talked about in meetings. And I'm bad about that because I'll like to be really practical and just talk about what's coming up, what do we need to focus on, and not about the leadership stuff. But I've found the more I talk about our mission, vision, and culture and core values, that we tend to make better decisions, provide better service, and everyone's more aligned. But if you don't talk about that stuff and you aren't letting everyone meet remotely and giving them the tools to do that, for instance, like we use Slack for all of our internal communication. And then if you're listening and haven't ever used Slack, it's got a way in it where you can connect with people visually and have video calls right through the app. So it's just like it used to be when we were in offices and you could intercom someone, except now I can see them face to face. And so it really shrinks your world, and they can be across the country in another country, and it's like they're just next door. And so if you use those things, then it really can help you have the camaraderie you need. But I still think there's nothing like having everyone, be able to do a stand-up meeting in the conference room before you start your day. But
Yeah,
we are where we
I
are
think
now.
that's the hardest thing. That's the thing I've heard the most and even experienced myself is building that culture and making sure everybody is clear on the vision and the goals and sort of all those kind of soft skill things that are not
Mm-hmm.
as obvious sometimes because you can have fantastic talent, but if they're not on the culture and the way clients are treated and all of that, it can undermine what you're doing very quickly. I have to ask because a lot of our listeners are small business owners or business founders, or they're interested in starting businesses. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen entrepreneurs or small business owners make with respect to legal services?
Yeah, let's say there's two big ones. One is that they are running as a sole proprietor, which you would think that wouldn't happen, but I run into it a lot. I was speaking at a conference in Atlanta two weeks ago and ran into a lot of it. It's crazy. People are still not having corporations and LLCs. They're a sole proprietor, which is very easy to operate that way because it takes no legal structure. But then you're solely responsible for everything that your business does, which means any asset you buy with your profit, they can take if there's a liability event. So that's the number one mistake. Closely tied to that would be that they're not protecting their brand. Too many people are building a business on a brand that they don't own. And what I mean by that is you don't have a trademark, and someone else actually has that trademark, and you're not aware of it because you've just been blissfully unaware because you didn't do the research. And so it's super important because you don't want to get to the end of the game and have climbed this ladder of success and have it leaning on someone else's building. And every year we get a client that comes in and says, "Hey, I got this letter that says I have to cease and desist from using this company name and rebrand in 30 days." It happens every year. And it's pretty shocking when that happens to you because maybe you've been in business 8 years and suddenly someone shows up and says, "We've been in business 10 years and that's our name and you can't use it. Here's our trademark registration." And there's really no defense to it. You then got to rebrand, and there's a loss of money that you're going to have to spend in rebranding, and then the momentum that you lose with the loss of your name. It's it's a horrible mistake that too many business owners are making just because they're not aware that it's something they should be doing. And when you form your company, and as soon as you decide this isn't a hobby, this is a business, then you should take the next step of this is our name. We're going to make sure we can own and dominate that name, and that means you file a trademark application. And it's not super expensive. There is an investment, but it's worth it. We went through 100 names for a company last year trying to get to and so there's some real work to do in getting to that application. So don't fall in love with this name or brand for your company until you've done the work, because you could lose it.
Yeah, it sounds like talking to an attorney early is the way to overcome some of that, and making sure, I mean, a lot of that you can do on your own, but just having someone check and make sure that that you've got a brand that you can own and maintain. It sounds really important. And another question I have along that branding line, do you think it's important for the individual entrepreneur to also have a personal brand online these days?
Yeah, I think it's both necessary and unavoidable. There's you're going to have a personal brand. It's either going to be intentional and one that you like, or it's going to be a really poor unintentional brand because you don't appear well. If people log on to LinkedIn and there's the little icon and no picture, you've got a brand, and that means they think you don't care. You're the business owner that doesn't care. So yeah, you've got to have it, and they're closely tied together. I mean, I do like we've talked about. I do several different things, but my personal brand, the Shatterproof brand, are so tied together that that's what I stand for. I mean, I'm America's legal coach, and I'm not trying to help business owners grow and protect their businesses. And when I do other things, that is always drug into it. Is who is Scott Reib? That's who he is, and it has an effect on my business, or if I'm doing joint ventures with other people, my brand is either a dark shadow or welcome sunlight to that brand, to the other venture. And so you've got to be intentional about it.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point. There's going to be something out there, so you need to manage it in a positive way so that it reflects what you want. And that's the world we live in now, right? Things are
Mm-hmm.
people, and as soon as that your name comes up, people go out and start to see what you've got on LinkedIn and what your other legal, or not legal, but digital presence looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of critical these days. One of the things that I read about you is that you are the official Zig Ziglar small business lawyer and a Ziglar certified coach. So tell us what that means. And, probably some of our audience, because they may be young, may not know who Zig Ziglar is. So,
Yeah.
he probably starting out in sales, you knew a lot about Zig Ziglar, but could you just tell our audience a little bit about, um, you know, what that means to be to have those titles and why that's important to you?
Yeah. Zig Ziglar was the sales and leadership guru, in my opinion, in the late 70s and 80s, 90s. He passed away before I got to be the company's lawyer, but he was the go-to guy. He influenced over 10 million small business owners, salespeople, with his message of how to build a better person, how to be, do, and have more. And I have the privilege of being a certified legacy trainer, so I can teach Zig's courses. And then I'm also the business lawyer and get to hang out with that family a lot. But it's changed a lot in my trajectory because of the integrity that Zig had and that his family has, and they've been kind enough. And Tom even wrote the foreword to my new book to put their stamp on me as the official small business lawyer. But I help them grow their business, and then they use me as a resource to help all the people that are going through the things that they're doing, try to keep their business between the lines. I speak at, if they have when they have events and conferences, they invite me often to speak and try to help people understand the importance and significance of running your business the right way from a legal perspective.
I find that so interesting, and it's the idea of influencers is really big today. Everybody talks about influencers, and of course, Zig Ziglar is a huge name, and somebody my age definitely knew, and so it's I think that the idea of influencers and how you can get that kind of build your credibility by being connected to others who are successful, and probably a good lesson in there for every entrepreneur to think about.
Yeah, and I was in 2000. I was looking for a niche. Right, I'm a small business lawyer. Been working with all these small businesses, and to market, I really need to have a target that I was shooting for, or my message was to hit no one. And so I wanted to work with speakers, trainers, and coaches So I went to a certification program, went to Atlanta to a 3-day event that was more money than I really should have paid. And my homework was to go to a live event. The only person I knew in Texas was Ziglar. And so I went to an event, ended up in a car with Tom Ziglar. He took me back to the airport. And so I got to spend in Houston traffic almost 2 hours riding around with Tom Ziglar. It was surreal. If you know Tom, he's a huge nerd. He's nothing like his dad. Doesn't look like his dad, doesn't sound like his dad, but all the wisdom of his dad. And I knew Zig because my dad was in sales and went to Zig's conferences, and I had tapes, so I knew who I was with. It was crazy. We get to the airport and go on different planes, and I'm calling my dad. You're not going to believe what just happened. And about a month later, I ended up back at a lunch with him and to talk to him about becoming their lawyer, and asked him if I could show him my sales presentation. And I'm like, you guys are the salespeople. Can I show you my presentation just to get some feedback? Walked him through. Back then, it was a flip chart in 2014, and got to the end and just said, "Is there any reason you wouldn't do business with me today, Mr. Ziglar?" And shut up. And a few minutes later, he said, "No, give me an agreement. I'm ready to go." And so they became early access members, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I absolutely love that story because the power of your network. Some people say that your network is your net worth, and
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that is, I think, so impactful about that story is that we never know what's going to happen when we show up, and I think I've heard it said that most every opportunity you get can come from showing up, and so you don't know what that's going to be. You just have to go and be open, and it's a great story that probably changed the trajectory of your work and your business in many ways by making that decision to go to that conference, and the rest is the story, right? That's just how it worked. Yeah.
Yep.
So, one of the things that entrepreneurs all face, and you as a business owner also have to deal with, is overcoming challenges and remaining resilient, because that's what really separates all of us. So, were there any times as you were building this new approach that you thought, hey, I'm just going to give up and go back, and it's easier to practice law as a partner somewhere and not try to do all of this other new innovative approach to the legal practice? Did you ever want to give up, and did you ever have any challenges that really kind of made you step back and think about it that you had to overcome?
I never wanted to give up, but I definitely have had some challenges. In 2014, I learned a really hard lesson. I had built my firm up. There were 3 full-time lawyers, several more staff people than you and I just discussed, and we were on our way to our first 7-figure year. And I ended up one of the lawyers left around in May. I was going to go on family vacation the last part of May, 1st of June. Was in California at Universal Studios with my family. I had 2 boys then. Well, now they were young boys; they're grown now, and we're in line at Universal. And I'm like, I haven't looked at my phone in a few days. I want to check my email. I checked the email. It was Sunday afternoon, and there's an email from the remaining lawyer saying it was his resignation. Attaches the list of cases and clients that I'm taking with me. Oh, and here's the paralegal's resignation. And I had to make a choice. I could either end the vacation midway and fly back home and fight for my law firm, or I could stay and finish the vacation. I chose to stay and finish the vacation. I did set up a virtual assistant, so I learned that technology that day and made sure my phone was being answered, and finished the vacation and came back to my 2,500 square foot office with just me, because the 18-year-old receptionist got scared when no one else came, and so she never came back. And so it was just me. And, I was mad at everyone for leaving. It was all their fault. It wasn't really their fault. It was my fault. We had created, at that point, we had 2 firms. We had the litigation firm and then my access firm. And as the access was growing, I was backing off of the litigation and had other people doing that. I had not cast a vision. I had not explained well where where we were going and why we were doing all these crazy things, because I was going to these conferences, coming back with these great ideas, having them implement them, but I didn't cast a vision. I didn't explain to them, this is where we're going clearly, so they could see there was a reason for all my madness. And people left, and it was a pretty big wake-up call for me that I had to rebuild from scratch. The benefit was, if you've ever lost all your employees, you have no payroll. That's one advantage there, is that your payroll goes to zero. And I had a recurring revenue model already built, and it wasn't like it is now, but it was enough that I knew I could pay my bills without billing anybody anything. So I could at least rest in that, and then figured out how to rebuild it slowly and tried to be better at casting that vision so that everyone understands why we're doing crazy things. Because if you're building a business, you're going to conferences and learning and trying to be a better person and business owner, then you're going to come back and ask people to do things that aren't comfortable for them, and they haven't been with you when you heard it. And so you've got to be able to explain why and how it fits and how it's going to be better for everybody. And so I've gotten better at that and learned that setback was my fault. It set me up for better things. But had I done better in 2013 and 14 of explaining where we were going, there's people that would still be with me for the ride, and they would be better for it. But I didn't explain it to them, and so they're gone.
Yeah. So many good lessons in there. I guess the one I'd love to pull out is the importance of, once you get over the anger, because we're all angry when these things happen, is the ability to take ownership of it and say, what can I do to ensure this doesn't happen again? And regardless, I think, of the crisis, there is typically a lesson in there that makes us better. And that, I think, tells that.
Yeah.
So really, really, really fun talking to you today, Scott. I know we could talk for longer. That, there's many, many of my listeners who are out there trying to figure out how much legal assistance they need, or when to see a lawyer, and how that all works. But I think this is great. You have a book that they might want to read. Do you want to mention your book and show
Yep.
your book there?
Yeah, the new book's out, The Shatterproof Entrepreneur. It's live on Amazon. You can get a copy there. If you want an autographed copy, then you would go to reiblaw.com. That's reiblaw.com/N factor. And we'll have a special page set up there where you can book a call with me. It'll be a 20-minute Zoom call where we can talk about the legal challenges that you have. I'll give you some unvarnished truth about what I think about your situation, and you can take that and use it. If we can help you, then great. But either way, you'll leave with value. And then if you'll go to that page, there's a way for you to message me so I can get you an autographed copy.
That's Reib, REIB law /impactor. Yeah. Okay. reiblaw.com/impactor. Well, I'm excited. It's been fun having you. I just have to ask you one more question before you leave. If you had one piece of advice that you could leave with our listeners, what would it be?
Talk to a lawyer early and often.
Yep. Sounds like a good one. And I think we talked about that a little bit earlier on, and you gave lots of reasons why that matters. So, Scott, thank you again. I hope everybody will go check out your book and Reib Law. And thanks for joining me today. It was fun.
Thanks, Rebecca. I had a good time too.